The first real Swarmcast with the three of us, Elliot Clough, David Eichelt, Sean Bach here for HawkeyeInsider.com. You guys crushed the last Swarmcast, by the way, the Darian Jones commitment, Trey Thompson. If you guys missed that, be sure to go listen to that. But Elliot, you're a week and a half in now. Just kind of curious about what your kind of thoughts are and if you kind of feel settled in yet.
Yeah, I would say so. It's definitely different than the other place. And managing another gig with it on top of starting a new job and then going on vacation 10 days later and having family visit next weekend and all the other stuff that you guys know about that other people will know about here shortly. But yeah, man, it's good. It's right around what I want. I mean, I've told you that, guys, it's where I wanted to be, but yeah, busy, lots of things going on, but all good things. So we're rolling, man.
I'll say, I know Sean's been crushing. I know, Sean, you're looking forward to your vacation here in a couple weeks. Like, I'm happy that you're actually gonna be able to go take one since the last one, a little bit busy with Ben McCollum and everything happening.
Yeah, I mean, I've been feeling fine. Like, I've been feeling pretty refreshed and everything. Like,
yeah,
still got some good energy, but I know, once it hits closer, I'll be like, all right, this is probably, or once I get out there, I'll be like, all right, this is what I need right now, or this is a good time to do it right before football season. A little upset I won't be in Vegas with you guys, but I'm fine with golfing in Michigan. That's okay with me.
Yeah, it's not too shabby. Yeah, I was gonna say Elliot and I will be in Las Vegas for Big Ten Media Days, and it'll be nice for Elliot, I think, to kind of get some FaceTime with a couple of our colleagues. Sean, I'm sure he's gonna have no problem fitting in with Rabbi and Nick Osen, which I know Elliot, you've known for a while, but we got some good guys in the Big Ten, and Vegas will be interesting for Big Ten. Like, just the whole like just moving all the Midwest schools and everything over to the West Coast for a couple of days. Like, it's different, but I guess that's exactly how the Oregon site, USC site, and everybody kind of felt when they were going to Indianapolis last year. But it's also their new reality. They got to kind of get used to going across the country at this point.
I feel like I got a decent grip of what it's like to be in Indy, and then they switch it. It's like, I had an internship there for a little while, so I know Indy decently well, but and then it's different getting your bearings in like Big Ten Media Days, knowing where stuff's at, knowing where to go, and then it's like, okay, never mind, sorry, new job, new place, all that. So
I was going to say, we used to, my family and I used to stay at Mandalay Bay all the time because we used to live 2 hours from Vegas. So whenever we'd fly out, we would just stay overnight in Vegas the night before, and we'd always just stay at Mandalay Bay. So I'm hoping it hasn't changed too much, and at least I still have some sort of a grasp. But I think the other side of it too is they tend to make things so dumbed down for the media. It's like they're trying to guide a bunch of 5-year-olds everywhere they're supposed to go with all the signs and all the people at like every corner. So it'll work out. But no, I'm happy. I'm stoked you're going, Elliot. It'll be a lot of fun.
Dave and I will be roomies, so we'll figure it out from the hotel once we both get there.
Sean's saying, don't let him go to a cigar bar.
Yeah, no comment. No comment on that. No comment at all.
But no, we got a bunch of stuff planned. I'll be on vacation here in about a week from now too. I'll be in Nashville for the big 3-0. Not looking forward to that whatsoever. Really working through some mental side of things, but ultimately it's probably not that big a deal, and I'm overhyping it. But anyways, let's get to it. Iowa football had a media day yesterday, July 9th. We got a chance to speak with Mark Gronowski for the first time since he got back from the Manning Passing Academy, and really since he's been fully cleared. We got a chance to talk to a lot of people. I mean, Elliot, I don't know about you. I thought we were going to get about 6 to 7 people, but they probably sent out about 12 to 13 different Hawkeyes out there. And then I was very happy that they waited to put Gernowski out at the end so we could at least talk to everybody else, because they knew that everybody was going to be all in on Gernowski. But, I'll start with my quick takeaway, then we'll kind of rapid fire here, guys. The wide receivers seem really confident, and they seem like they have a much better grasp of what's kind of being asked of them. I mean, I think Jacob Gill talked about how mature the room is. KJ Parker was a really fun interview. I just put up a story about him on HawkeyeInsider.com about kind of how he really was not too happy his first year, especially the first few months, and really understanding that he wasn't going to be a big part of the offense. But we know he's made plays behind the scenes. But Jacob Gill seems really happy with it. Did not get the chance to talk to Sam Phillips, but I do think there's just some sort of a much higher floor, I think, with the wide receivers. And it really does help that you have a quarterback in Mark Gronowski who can make throws at all three levels, and obviously all the positive buzz about him with the Manning Passing Academy. But the other thing that I thought was really noteworthy is Gernowski talked about taking a bunch of the wide receivers, and I believe asking Estrenga down to Dallas, Texas for a weekend. They got a chance to get in some work down there. They got a chance to get to know each other on and off the field, and that's something Gernowski continues to really kind of hammer home, is he really wants to build these relationships with the offensive linemen, with just teammates in general, because he thinks that's going to lead to better play. Said that's something they really stressed at South Dakota State. And we've said it all along, guys, winning translates. So he's trying to bring some of those characteristics up to Iowa City. But I came away really impressed with the wide receivers. I think they're confident. How good are they going to be? My guess is as good as yours at this point. But I do think that there's some reasons to be cautiously optimistic. But I would like to see an alpha kind of emerge from that group. And they have a go-to guy. And I'm keeping my eye on Jacob Gill. I just really liked what I saw at him last year. Seems like a kid that has put in a ton of work and has been a really good leader for the wide receiver room.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that a lot of what we've heard from that receiver group is that the confidence and comfortability has just like skyrocketed from last year to this year. Whether that, like you said, whether that results in production is another thing and another conversation to have. But I mean, that was one of the first things that I shared with our VIPs on the offseason buzz, is that the confidence and comfortability has gone up dramatically for that receiver room. I mean, 8 or 9 guys that could ultimately play this year between, I mean, you go down the line, Caden Weegan, Jacob Gill, Seth Anderson, Dayton Howard, Jarriett Bowie, KJ Parker. Who am I forgetting?
Sam Phillips.
Seth Anderson.
I think I said Seth Anderson.
Oh, oops.
I might not have said Jacob Gill. Anyway, if I had to guess right now, you mentioned the alpha. I mean, based on the production from Sam Phillips at Chattanooga, you'd hope that that's the case. Not always the case. Last year was Jacob Gill coming from Northwestern.
Yep. Oh, Reese Vanderzee.
Yeah. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
The true X of this group, too. And coming back after a pretty productive freshman season, all things considered. But yeah, and you know, you talk about Gernowski, and I think the drum that I'm going to continue to beat is the fact that he is not the last guy. He is a humble guy that knows he has to earn everything that he's given. And he's going to fit in really well with the Iowa culture, if not already doing so. You can just tell by the way he talks to the media, and the way he's embraced everything that he's done so far. You mentioned the trip to Dallas. I think bringing those guys, KJ Parker especially down there, was telling, and Sam Phillips. It was interesting for that point. The other thing that I'd point to from yesterday is the thing that I tweeted out is Jazz Patterson's up to 210.
Yeah,
he was at 195 last year, came in at 185. So he's put on a bunch of weight. And if he's already been a hammer and really difficult to tackle. Now imagine that plus 15 pounds.
Yeah, and I mean, you bring up that point about Jazz too. I kind of remember back in his high school recruitment, I think there was, kind of the knock on him, or obviously he was around the COVID era, so he wasn't able to get out to camps, and his recruitment took a dip because of that. But I remember I think he was up towards like 200, 205, or like 210 in high school, but it wasn't good weight. It was not good weight. So then they took him back down to 190. Like once he got to Iowa, you could maybe like still see some of that like bad weight, or not necessarily bad weight, but like just not as strong and not as fluid as a runner. And now, they're able to get him up to 210, and he looks, I don't know about you guys, he looks pretty lean for that.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, could really help with that speed. And, because I think everyone classifies him as kind of that hard runner, kind of that short distance guy. Maybe he could be a little more all around this year, maybe be more of the back in that way. Because I think, like I said, that's kind of been on the knock on him, is he kind of just goes. Like he doesn't really have patience as a runner at all. But, maybe this could be the year where he does that and is able to reach that potential a little bit more.
That's one thing he said yesterday, too, is he wants to add a juke to his bag. That and separation speed. Like the one run we all think of with Jazz is when he took off against Iowa State and didn't quite get to the end zone. So what he's doing in 7-on-7 is every time he catches the ball, he's running to the end zone no matter how far away it is. So he's trying to increase that conditioning, maintaining that top end speed. So To a degree, I think he's kind of maybe not, but to a degree, he might be like the third guy between Kamari, TJ, and him as the leadoff, just because he took a fun first year on the field in a consistent role and then maybe took a bit of a step back in the following year. So I think people are excited about the potential with Kamari and TJ, and Jazz kind of gets put to the side. But I mean, he's just as capable of having a breakout year as they are, especially if he adds those two things to his toolkit, so to speak.
I was going to say, I don't think I've ever heard Elliot Clough use the phrase "in his bag" one time in 4 years of knowing you. But you're right, man. I mean, that's exactly when I talked to Jazz. The first thing he said, look dead in the camera and said, top end speed. I know I got to get faster. And I do think it's interesting, too, because I asked him about the relationship he has with Omar Young, the new running back coach. And he said, look, it took us a while to kind of really get comfortable with him. And it was nothing to do with Omar. It was the fact that they had that level of respect for Liddell Betts. But he said after really getting the chance to go through some practices with him, getting some one-on-one conversations, like he's all in on Omar. And Ellie, I'm sure you feel the same way, Sean, but like with the chances we've gotten to speak with the running backs, they talk very glowingly about Omar. And Omar was a really great interview, and we got a chance to speak to him. Like, I think he's really fitting into what this Iowa sort of culture is all about. And the running back room is still one of the more intriguing things to me in this entire equation too, because obviously I think Kamari Moulton's going to be the one. TJ Washington sort of that big mystery factor to me, because I love his versatility. He's got like a Swiss Army knife, and I know we feel like we've said that about other players, but he's just a different sort of player and has a different set of skills than Iowa. Everybody else in Iowa just either has or doesn't have. He has them all in one. Now, when you add that in with a guy like Tim Lester, who is incredibly creative, I think, when it comes to play calling, I think TJ could easily be a breakout guy. But the other side of me is thinking, okay, I think Jazz Patterson knows this could be his big money year where he really needs to be able to get it going. And I love his blocking ability, especially on third down. We've seen him catch a few passes out of the backfield. And you think about the 15 pounds he's added, if he just waits that additional quarter of a second when he does those in between the tackles and still rushes with that same sort of relentlessness, there's big play opportunities there, because he was already a demon to tackle at 195. And if he really add 15 pounds of good muscle, I don't envy a running back if you have Jazz Patterson coming full steam ahead, helmet down right at you. I mean, that's going to be a really, really tough tackle.
It's funny. Within this last year, I mean, I guess before this last year, talking about Caleb Johnson, a lot of what I said is he needs to take notes from Jazz Patterson about hitting the hole, because he hesitates too much. And now here we are a year later, and I think Jazz needs to take some notes from KJ, who obviously had a phenomenal year and showed some incredible patience. And obviously he has the strength and all those things to go along with it. But I mean, you almost don't want to say you almost don't want to say add some hesitation or add some, vision maybe is the right word in adjusting, because it has worked really well at different points in time, but it's also resulted in 2-yard gain, 1-yard gain, where he just runs into the back of the offensive line. So definitely opportunity there.
Yeah, I mean, it really fascinates me to see like what this running back room looks like this year in terms of the depth, because I think last year was one of the times where we were like, okay, this is going to be a running back by committee approach. But we saw Caleb Johnson probably take 70 of the snaps. And, obviously that was for a reason, because, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And he was by far the most productive back in the room. But this year it's just like, last year it was like, okay, there's a top three of, obviously LaShawn Williams was still here. It's still in Iowa, but he was injured. It was Jazz Patterson, Kamari Moulton, Caleb Johnson. Now you're talking about potentially 5 or 6 running backs. Like, that's maybe we're kind of overemphasizing it a little bit. Like, maybe it's more like 5. But, just like it's interesting to me how they're going to handle that, or how they're going to carry that, because I think really like last year with, Caleb Johnson, it was really a best case scenario, because yes, you have running backs that can bring different things to the table, but how do you really want to allocate those snaps? Because yes, every person brings something different to the, the running back room, different style. But, how does that really let you like get into a rhythm with certain backs? And I think that's one thing that, was really nice about this offense last year was Caleb Johnson was able to get into a rhythm most times. If there were times where maybe he didn't have the best drive, he was still out there the best drive. Well, maybe this is just my eye in the past where other guys have had a bad drive, then, you put someone else in. So how do you kind of let that get into a rhythm? Obviously, it depends on the game. And, I think too, with this offensive line and, kind of the teaching and ideologies that they have, I think it's more consistent and more consistent from back to back. And just like you're able to, I guess, feel more comfort as a running back behind those guys and also having the run scheme with Tim Lester. And I also think just having Mark Gronowski, who, I probably should talk about next because obviously
I was going to say
he had a lot of good things to say yesterday. Just having a quarterback like that too, who is a threat to throw the ball and having a receiving game, it all just comes together. And I think too, it's just impressive to see what KJ did last year with, not really much of a passing game at all. But you have this group, what can this group really accomplish with the guys that they have and the depth that they have with the potentially a really good passing game?
If I can add one thing before we jump to Gernowski.
Yeah.
The way, there are several factors that stick out to me here when we're talking about balancing the running attack, who's getting snaps, who's getting reps, who's getting the ball. And the first question is, can Omar Young manage the running back room the way Liddell Betts did? Because they had one transfer, and it was Leshawn Williams because he got hurt. And I guess Max White this last offseason, but a walk-on going to Wyoming. And he probably would have been part of the rotation too. He did see the field a decent amount. So that's one question. Two, we saw TJ Washington take second team punt return. So is he going to be the fellow returner back there with Caden Weegan on kicks? That's an opportunity for him to touch the ball. To me, the way I look at the group, at least those top three, is Kamari Moulton's more of an every down back, TJ Washington more of a third down back, and then Jazz Patterson because of the ability to make plays out of the backfield, right? If there's anything we've seen from him, it's that. And then third, it's Jazz Patterson, punch you in the mouth. And then whatever Xavier Williams and Brevin Dahl and Nathan McNeil can supplement after that, great. But because they're young, because you got this upper echelon of running backs, they're just not going to see the field as much, despite maybe being talented enough to see the field at this point. They're just not going to be in that upper group.
But the positive, real quick, one other thing, the positive with this group is you hear about these 5 or 6 running backs, and these guys are more ahead than maybe you thought they would be. Obviously Xavier Williams, we saw him last year, saw him this year in the spring practice. He's been nothing but productive. Brevin Dahl's obviously been dealing with an injury. Has kind of been, hit or miss with that injury throughout his career. And then Nathan McNeil, a guy that was super under-recruited, and, you look at the film and you're kind of like, wow, this guy looks pretty good, but obviously he's still a bit raw. He comes to Iowa and is making a pretty, name for himself early on. Then you have Braden Jackson, another guy who, they got as a walk-on somehow, some way out of Ankeny Centennial. And,
should have been
FCS. A lot. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Should have definitely been an offer guy too, FCS, even maybe some of those FBS schools, lower FBS schools in the MAC or something. You get a guy like him, that's a lot of talent that you have early on in the room. But it's yes, that's a blessing and a curse, because it's how can you keep this room to stick together? Because you have guys that are farther ahead than, you maybe expect or you maybe anticipated. How does that kind of go forward? Yes, you have 3 guys this year. Hopefully guys can be patient and wanting to be patient to, stick around and, because if you have all that talent, because I think everyone can come back next year in the running back room too.
There's still one key factor we have not mentioned yet. They have a good offensive line. So you throw that in there with the running back situation. You get Logan Jones, you get Jennings Dunker, Cade Pieper, which we've heard a ton about, and I'm really intrigued about how he kind of grows into that role. Left tackle, I have my questions right now, but we know that there's potential there. And then Bo Stevens, if Bo Stevens can remain healthy, he's been a little bit inconsistent, but he's a guy when he's rolling, he's got the brute strength to really, really make a difference too. So you combine all that in with the running backs, it'll be interesting. But the man of the offseason, I would say, for Iowa football, Mark Gronowski, really, really, he's a really fun guy to talk to, and he's really smart. And it's kind of funny. His teammates and coaches almost joke with him and give him crap. Because, by the way, if people don't know, he has a master's degree in mechanical engineering. So all he's doing this fall is taking like a bunch of leadership courses and then going to play football. You talk about a Kirk Ferentz picture perfect quarterback right there. It makes all the sense in the world. But he looks like he's added some good weight. Has a lot of, he can make throws at all levels. We heard about the buzz with him in the Manning Academy. And it seems like his teammates talk very highly about him. I'm going to be intrigued to see if he gets named a captain this year, because I just think he kind of has that sort of showmanship and that sort of rally the troops kind of guy. But at the same time, you think about how many great leaders are on this team, right, that played a lot of football here. You think about Logan Jones, who was voted captain for the final couple games of last year. Jennings Dunker might be in that category. Xavier Wampa, Cohen Entringer, things we've heard about him just from a character perspective from behind the scenes. There's a reason why he's going to Big Ten Media Days. If people don't know this, Kirk Ferentz no longer selects who goes to Big Ten Media Days. The Leadership Council selects it. So Cohen Entringer, despite being, yes, he's kind of an experienced guy, but despite not playing a ton of starting reps on the football team, everybody knows he's going to be a big factor this year. He's going to be throwing that mix. But for Mark, I think he's extremely confident. I don't think he has many questions about the playbook. And I think the relationship he has with Tim Lester, he said it's the exact same as when he got the recruiting pitch. And that's something he really values and really appreciates. And then you talk about adding the former Wake Forest offense coordinator, Warren Ruggiero. He talks about if he can't get in there, go meet with Tim, because if Tim's in some other meetings with the offense, because he's a quarterback coach as well, he can go into Warren's office and they can chop it up and he can ask questions and break down film. I don't think Mark Gronowski is going to be this big stat padding, game breaking quarterback, and that's always going to be the case, I think, with Iowa football. But guys, I'm fairly convinced, just entering this season, he's probably Iowa's best quarterback since Nate Stanley, at least. And I'd even argue you could go back farther. The buzz I've heard about him is he's really starting to piece things together. I think the big thing for me, and we're going to see it hopefully a little bit more come, I believe, Kids Day is going to be August 9th. It's usually the day after Media Day, but that's not finalized. I'm not breaking any news here. I'm really intrigued about the type of stuff they show and how he performs, because my big question for Mark at this point is two things. One, can he be consistently productive and make good decisions against Big Ten competition? Two, can he protect himself? You look at the highlight reels that he had back at the FCS level. How many times, guys, did he just go truck over somebody, go make an extra man miss, get those extra 4 or 5 yards, do all those things? With all due respect to the FCS level, because there's a lot of really, really good football players, you aren't doing that against Oregon. You're not doing that against Ohio State. You're not doing it against Penn State, at least as often. Of course, you can get it done every once in a while. And after the quarterback injury situation through the last couple of years, I don't think they're going to tell him to not play his game, but they are going to say, hey, run out of bounds, live, see another play, do it. If you can slide, protect yourself, great. If he can do those two things, I'm very, very encouraged based on what I've seen and what I've heard thus far.
One thing he said yesterday about running the ball, because I asked him about it. I was like, I've covered the FCS, I've covered UNI. Some great guys come out of there, some NFL guys come out of there, but it's not Power 4 football, right? You mentioned Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State. You can be this guy with gravitas. You can have this experience, but some of these dudes will eat you alive if you try to run the ball like that. It's just the way it is at the Power 4 level, Big Ten level. So he said, we'll do it as needed. It won't be a thing that I'm going to need, I want and need 15 carries a game. That's not who he is. He's not Mike Vick back there, but he's able to run a straight line and he's going to be difficult to tackle. One thing that you mentioned there, Dave, about his size at this moment in time. I remember you and I talking during spring ball and you said, I think Mark needs to add some weight. And I don't think either of us are thinking that at this point in time. So that should help out in terms of his health. And the other question is, whoever's playing left tackle, Are they going to be able to protect his backside? Like, that left tackle is a major question right now.
Yeah.
We don't know who it's going to be. We're probably not going to know until, Kids Day, because KF said we're not going to get a summer depth chart. So that is a really big concern for me.
I don't know if we'll know till game week.
Yeah.
I really don't think we'll know till the projected depth chart unless something crazy happens. I'm not saying they're worried about it, but I do think that there's a lot of questions about it right now.
I was just saying, like, who we see there at Kids Day, but yeah. I mean, and they hold out a bunch of guys for those open practices too, so we might not even know who it is then. So
yeah, I mean, heck, it might change throughout the year too. I mean, hopefully you want to ride with one guy, but it's one of those situations where maybe we see one guy in on one drive. Who knows? Like, it's really fascinating to me with that left tackle position, because everything else on the offensive line seems really settled, but that is just the one position where you have three guys vying for right now. And you're bringing Bryce George, but man, that is a big step. Talk about the FCS level. Yes, he's coming from the D2 level, like the top D2 conference in the country, but man, that's an even bigger step that you have to really overcome. But yeah, I mean, obviously I wasn't there yesterday to listen to Gernowski, but I watched the interviews that you guys did, and kind of just that sense of confidence that he has. Like, he doesn't really seem rattled, doesn't really seem bothered by things, like bothered by some of the questions. Yes, that comes with a guy who, has been as successful as he has at the FCS level, and he's kind of just been that way, like played on the biggest stage. Like, that was a good question that Scott Document asked him was, do you feel like kind of being able to build chemistry with guys and just like being able to, be so comfortable because you played in some of these big games, like at the FCS level, the biggest games potentially. And he goes, yeah, totally. Like, I've played in some of like the toughest environments, like toughest, like not just environments with the field and the opponent and like going on the road, but like, you're playing in snow, you're playing in the blistering wind, like, you're playing in those crazy environments. Like, it just kind of is, we talk about, the passing game being more reliable, which there's a lot of confidence that it will still be, or it will, take that next step in being reliable. But, he's just kind of like, it's cliche, but he's just a gamer, man. Like, he's just a gamer. And, Ellie, you brought up a good point. It's like, how much of a gamer do you want him to be in certain points? Like, that's kind of a conversation that, is a little dicey. I think with that depth at wide receiver, that's going to help a lot, kind of take the load off his shoulders. But, how is he going to be able to get that? You have to let the receivers get separation too. You have to really see what these guys can do to produce and having that offensive line. But you're right. I mean, the left tackle position is definitely one where it's kind of like maybe I feel a little more uneasy about this than I, really thought in the first place. Granted, going into the season, I know a lot of people are kind of in like, I want to see it to believe it before I really buy in. And I mean, that's totally valid.
Yeah.
But it's just like hard not to see what the potential and upside could be with him, assuming that all things works out, because I think the boomer bust factor is a lot smaller than, past quarterbacks. Or I think the bust is a lot more, smaller in that regard. Like, it's not okay. I could definitely see this being a total disaster. Like, I think the lowest of Gronowski's performance is still going to be pretty respectable from what we've seen in the past.
Oh, no question.
Yeah. And I think that's one reason to feel like more confident, even if you're like, I need to see what a pass, I need to see him complete the pass, or I need to see him play in a game. Like, I think the bust factor is a lot smaller than the last couple of years. And that's something that you can, it's not the healthiest way to go about it, but it's something you can hang your hat on like a little
bit. It's like the copium.
Yes. Like, there is some copium.
But it's true, though.
There's more around, like, there's just more around him too. Like, yes, we talk about left tackle, but like Spencer Petras' final year, like Tyler Linderbaum was probably the only guy that should have been starting at any offensive line position on that line.
Yeah.
Now you have four guys who, have starting experience that are going to be starting. Like, that's a big plus.
Yes. No, I'm right there with you. And again, I think people kind of got their eyes open when it came to Spencer Petras. And again, I'm not saying he's a world beater by any means, but there weren't weapons around him, man. And the offensive scheme was just a flat out failure. I mean, call a spade a spade. Like it's quite frankly, it's that simple to me, right?
Understatement of the year, David Eichel.
Yeah, I know. Well, Captain Obvious. I'm happy I could help contribute. It didn't work, but it'll be interesting. And again, I do think that we saw enough signs of Tim Lester and just the way he continued to adapt throughout the game. Now, I do think that they learned a lot from that Iowa State game specifically, and we saw the way they kind of changed up some things after that. And I do think it's worth noting that Tim Lester does not strike me as a stubborn offensive coordinator. He wants to continue to try new things and add new things. And like when they threw Brendan Sullivan in, right, for the goal line packages, like that was a huge positive step. I don't think I've ever seen that really in any other Ferentz era. And that tells me also a lot of people were worried when Lester took over if it was going to be KF's offense. I can say without a doubt it's not. There are aspects to it, but it's not his offense. Look how much pre-snap motion there is. Look at the trickeration. Look at all these other things that they're doing. Now, again, the big thing for me is, are they going to take some shots downfield? Because when you look at the way teams are loading the box and the way they were playing Iowa's offense last year, I don't think Caleb Johnson got enough credit nationally for what he was able to do. And I think I'll probably second to Ashton Genty. I'm not going to dismiss what he did at Boise State. When you're going up against a stacked box like that, I don't think there's anybody better in the country than Ashton Genty and Caleb Johnson. And what he was able to do is pretty spectacular. So we have a lot to diagnose when it comes to the offense and Gernowski, but since we got time yesterday to speak to them, I thought it was important. We are going to answer some of our VIP questions. Sean, do you have our thread pulled up, or do I need to get them?
Yeah, I got it. Let's go to the first one. Are we ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do some quick hitters. So let's not try and go too long on it. I know all three of us like to talk and just ramble. So let's go with some quick hitters. Who is going to be this year's special teams ace, non-kicker / punter? Obviously, Caden Weechin would probably be the guy that, would be that guy, but let's go outside of him too. Is that a gunner? Is it
Jalen Watson?
Jalen Watson? Okay.
I'm going to go Cohen Entringer.
Oh, that's a better pick. Yeah.
You're not supposed to admit it that quick.
I mean, I think that'll also depend, because I don't know that Iowa would tend to play it safe in this regard, but just because of the lack of depth at safety / catch now, is Cohen not going to play special teams? Because Cohen goes down. Are you going to Ty Hudkins, who just arrived? Are you going to Kale Kolarek, walk on? Yeah, that would make me nervous.
We did see that risk with Cooper DeJean, because you needed him out there on special teams as a gunner. You needed him out there. All right. I'll go with Jalen Watson or Cohen. Those are two good picks. Who will have the most rushing touchdowns this season?
Kamari.
Mark Gronowski.
Oh, gosh.
God, shut up. I think it's going to be
Moulton.
I think, it's going to be Moulton.
I do think Gernowski gets at least 4 or 5, though.
Probably. They'll sneak it. He's too big, too strong to not sneak it. Do you guys agree with me that if there is a breakout running back, it's Kamari?
But is he a breakout, though?
If there is anybody to have even as the number one running back, let's say that, clear number one, has the majority of the carries, maybe not 70% like KJ last year, but 50 to 60%, it's Kamari.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think he's more of an every down back. So
100%. Over under 31 points per game this season.
I think the offense is going to be better, but it's going to be under.
Yeah. It's Iowa. Take the under.
Yeah.
That's free money.
Hey, the overs were looking good last year, though.
Yeah. I guess, against Northwestern and Wisconsin, if you didn't take the over. Ooh.
The other part, though, too, that's important to note, again, when I say the offense will be better, but the offense, the points will be lower, look at the schedule. They're going against Penn State. They're going against Oregon. They're going against Indiana. They're going against top of the top Big Ten teams.
Going to USC. it's
USC.
yeah.
Well,
I
we'll
mean,
see what happens to the USC. Are they finally going to
Ooh.
fix the defense for the first time in like 10
Right.
years?
That's true. I guess I was more so invoking the whole trip to California thing. And then who knows what Wisconsin's going to be, if they're going to be good ever under Luke Fickell. Like, I mean,
Have you looked at their schedule this year?
it's brutal. I know that.
It's the most brutal schedule I've ever seen. I think they win 4 games this year. And
right.
it's not even the fact that they're not bowl eligible, like bowl worthy team, dude. But like, yeah, it's the schedule is brutal.
Okay, next one. What are you most worried about with the football team? And I think this is kind of a constant. Linebackers. Like I'm still a little iffy there.
Yeah.
Let's see you guys.
Oh, you got
Yeah.
Elliott.
I mean, I would probably say linebacker as well. I'm less so. I would probably say I'm less worried about linebacker as opposed to left tackle, just because of that bevy of youth that's talented in the linebacker room. We've heard a little bit about Jaden Montgomery. We've heard a little bit about Landon Van Keekerix too in the middle. That's, guys that could step up and fill those roles. Jaden Harrell is not Jay Higgins though, man. Like he is not Jack Campbell. And to have that expectation is unfair from the get-go. But it's going to be tough for Iowa fans to look at that middle linebacker position, notice it's not All-American, and not get super negative and super, rip these guys like that. That's a concern. So I think that's super valid. But it will be, in my opinion, I think it will be like a linebacker by committee kind of thing. But left tackle is just it's got to be a concern, right? And then probably corner has to be in there too.
The thing that's going to be interesting to me, dude, is the fact that, like I said, I feel bad for anybody that's going into that Mike linebacker spot because the standard's so ridiculously high. Like Jack Campbell, especially like Jay Higgins had all that pressure and he somehow lived up to it, if not way more than that, right? I don't see anybody right now that's going to be able to live up to that. I have my worries about linebacker. That's probably where my biggest concern is outside of like a true cornerback one, because I don't see them having a true shutdown corner right now. Could that be a TJ Hall? Could that be, Deshaun Lee? Could he piece that together? The other concern I have too, and I think I talked about with you, Elliot, the other day, and I don't know if I brought it on air yet. I'm really nervous about the tight ends. I like Zach Wortworth. I like Aston Ostrenga a lot. I think they're two potentially really good players. But it's the same argument with the linebackers, right? There's not a lot of proven production to hang your hat off of. Iowa has the standard of excellence with the tight ends, but is there a guy that can really step up and be that tight end one? This is without a doubt the biggest question mark I've had when it comes to tight ends since I started covering the team in 2018. And look at the standard that year set. That was TJ Hawkins and Noah Fant, guys. So it'll be interesting to see. But linebackers, I'm worried about. I think Cohen Entringer's going to really live up to that safety spot. But I don't know, man. I again, the more I look at this team, the more I like it, the linebackers and everything. But there's certain things I just cannot get over that I'm really, really intrigued about when it comes, especially against the Iowa State team that they play in week 2.
One thing I'll add quick, Sean, before we go to the next question, is what I said to Dave yesterday when we talked about tight ends was they lost a lot. Like Luke Lachey gone, Gavin Hoffman gone, all those walk-ons that they had other than DJ Bonamy gone. Like you got 4 guys that are probably playable and then 3 freshmen. It's just, I mean, is Michael Burt playable? Is DJ Bonamy playable at this point? Like Addison Ostrenga has also like, I don't know if injury prone is the right word, but he's gotten injured both of the last 2 seasons. Zach Ortworth, luckily, has been kind of an Iron Man at that position. Hasn't gotten hurt. And I like him a lot. And
Elliot, it's the same thing for George Barnett when he came to Iowa the first year of the offensive line. If they're not playable, guess what? Next man in. They're going to learn if you're playable.
Right. And then we saw last year, even when Luke Lachey was healthy, he just didn't get the ball all that much. Granted, quarterback's going to probably be quite a bit better, but still, up in the air.
Okay, let's go through these a little quicker now.
Sorry, guys. Sorry, Sean. Sean wants to fire through, man.
I got golf soon, so I kind of got to get in.
Oh God.
Priorities.
Who's the best player Iowa faces this season? I've gone kind of back and forth on this one because I think, the easy answer for some people might be Drew Aller because he has more weapons, but also some people are kind of like, or when you look on paper, it's Drew Aller. But I think, there's some pretty good defensive and offensive linemen that they play. I think about, the edge rushers for Oregon. Oregon also brought in that offensive lineman from Nevada. What's his name? Isaiah World. He looks like an NFL guy. He's like 6'8", 340. Penn State has some really good skill guys. Oregon has some really good skill guys. Minnesota has Anthony Smith, who's a really good edge rusher. I mean, there's not like one guy that I'm like, okay, this is going to be like, this is it. Like, it's not like they're playing Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith. Like, I don't know. Like, I think there's a good like array of skill players that they're going up against, but I think in the trenches against Penn State and Oregon, I think is going to be where they're challenged the most.
I would have thrown Evan Stewart in that bunch had he not been injured about 3.5 weeks ago, because I think he was going to be in for a massive breakout year.
Rocco Becht.
A+ troll.
Dylan Raiola.
He was waiting. Oh gosh, you were waiting on that. You were waiting to fire that up. My thing is, I think Drew Aller has the highest ceiling, but I've yet to see him really piece everything together.
He could be the first overall pick in the NFL draft.
Which is that saying more about him or the draft?
That's also true.
Yeah.
The thing is, there's really no knock on Drew Aller outside of this from my standpoint. He refuses to throw the ball deep. He refuses to trust his receivers from time to time to go up there and make a play. And we see him check down after check down after check down. But he protects the football. He's got ideal size. He has great football IQ. He's athletic. Like, he can do everything you ask of him outside of trusting his receivers downfield. If he does that, then I think he's the best player they play. But, Sean, you're right. I mean, they play some killer people in the trenches. I think there's some collective position groups that are going to cause some really interesting problems for Iowa. Yeah, especially against that line. The Iowa linebackers are going to get really tested.
Yeah. Who's the starting right guard for Albany? Sorry, troll. I'm sorry, guys.
Not to like dwell on this too much. I did obviously it's this time of year where you gotta kind of get creative with some of the articles that you put together.
Please tell me the starting right guard.
Who is the best player on every team? And Albany was Albany and UMass were really hard because they just completely roster overall. Yeah. So I just put the starting quarterback for UMass, and then I put the second leading tackler for Albany last year who came back. And I was just like,
what's
all right,
name? What's his name?
You
don't have to tell us. I was just seeing if you knew it off the top of your head.
Ron Holmes.
There you go.
There you go.
And then also the USC wide receivers will be pretty good too.
Yeah.
That's true.
Okay. Is it college football playoff or bust?
Yeah, I already know who asked that question.
I think 9-3 is a good year, but also who do you lose to that you make it a good year? I think you have to get. You don't have to, but I think getting Oregon or Penn State at home.
Wait. Did you say Oregon?
Just shut up.
You from Wisconsin?
Oregon or Penn State? I'm gonna say how I want to say it. I used to say Illinois instead of Illinois, and I'm from there. So Oregon or I'm gonna keep saying it like that. I don't care.
I know now he's gonna keep saying it. It's fine. Go ahead, Sean.
I think you have to avoid the really disappointing loss. But it's also Iowa football. There's going to be a disappointing loss there somewhere. Where you're kind of man, the entire season really could have changed had we won this game. Last year, it was Iowa State. You have to avoid a loss like that. But also, there's going to be a loss like that.
You got to beat Iowa State.
Yeah.
You got to beat Iowa State, and you have to knock off a ranked opponent. Because look at how Iowa's performed against ranked opponents the last 6-7 years. It's been really brutal. Guys outside a couple of high moments. Iowa has, I think, if it's a successful season if Iowa goes 8-4, 9-3. They beat Iowa State, they beat Nebraska, and the passing offense gets in the top 75. Because then you at least got something to build off of in the future. You can recruit wide receivers to come to your school that transfer. You can recruit quarterbacks saying, look at the dramatic improvement that they had. You overhaul the passing offense and you avoid a disappointing loss. It's a very successful 2025 for Kirk Ferentz in Iowa.
I think if literally everything goes their way, 10-2 is the ceiling. Like you steal a win from Penn State, you steal something from Oregon, and then you lose one of those two games and like lose on the road to USC. Like that's probably the ideal. But I think the threshold for success versus not success is 7-5, 8-4. And you mentioned that top 75. If they go top 75 in passing, that is a massive success. I would say probably like top 85 would be a little bit more realistic. Top 90, just because of how bad it's been. But I mean, again, we're all expecting Mark Gronowski to improve the passing offense and Tim Lester and the comfortability and the confidence of the receivers. So yeah, I'd say 8-4, which should be considered a successful season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of going against my own rule here of being quick, but like you look at the schedule and it's just like, man,
it's brutal. This ain't the Big Ten West anymore.
I mean, there's not one game. It's not even that it's like not the Big Ten West. Like all these teams, like which game on the Big Ten schedule is going to be like Iowa favored by a touchdown or more? Like there's really not many to me. Like maybe Michigan State at home, but like that's going to be like Michigan State's going to be pretty solid, I think.
And if they play anything like they did against Michigan State on the road last year, where they completely shat the bed, like I mean, Minnesota at home, like if they have a bad year, it's later on in the year. So
Rutgers, like on the road, even I think Rutgers is gonna be good, like solid. Like they have a really hard schedule, but
Wisconsin's not gonna be that good, but like
it's at
Wisconsin. Yeah, I'd say anything more than 4.5 point favorite will be really interesting.
The 3-game stretch of Iowa State, Rutgers at Indiana, like that is a sleepy, like very difficult stretch. It is going to tell us a lot, I think.
Well, wait, you said Iowa State, Rutgers, and Indiana?
Yeah, isn't that their first? Then they have the. Yes, you're right. They play UMass. But like I didn't include that game for a reason.
Yeah,
like that's a good. Just let me play my narrative. All right. Who leads the team in rushing yards? I think we'll all say Molden.
Yep.
Who leads the team in receiving yards? I think it's probably still going to be Jacob Gill, but in an ideal world, it's Reese Vanderzee or maybe Sam Phillips. But I don't know about Sam Phillips.
I would probably say the exact same answer.
I hate to be boring. I'd say the same thing.
I mean, like, does Dayton Howard break through? Like, I mean, there's 8 or 9 guys that are playable. And Howard had moments last year. I mean, I think that block against Nebraska where KJ had that huge run was super underrated, but we're not talking about a block, right? We're talking about catching passes. So, I mean, does Jariat Bowie break through? He played well at the end of the season last year.
Jacob Gill's the guy who's proven to catch the ball over the middle and not drop passes. That's one of the sole reasons why I'm going with him. But then again, you can make some argument for Sam Phillips.
Yeah.
He hasn't dropped anything either.
I think 1 drop pass last year, and it was probably the most important against Missouri when they needed that to convert. So,
will punting still be winning, or will the offense win some games this year? I think the offense is more capable of winning games. How many games, though, can you look at the offense and be like, okay, they're going to win this game? Like that's where it's a little, tough to me.
We'll find out early against Iowa State. I think there's going to be a moment where it's Mark Gronowski and they need to drive and get points.
And Kirk Ferentz is still the head coach. So still punting from on Iowa's side of the 50. Like that's some things are just Kirk is the way he is, you know?
Well, on top of that, too, we need to see how good this defense is going to be. Look, I get trusting Phil Parker, but this is as many questions as I've had about an Iowa defense in quite some time.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's valid. Are the DBs the biggest weakness on the team? Any concern there? No, I think we talked about that already.
I have tight ends.
An update on Brian Allen.
He missed the spring. I don't know if he's participating right now. I would assume, but I know he's going to be good to go for camp, right?
That's the latest I heard is he's going to be good for camp. I don't know if he's been doing full in summer workouts. Honestly, that's something that we probably need to check in on. But at the same time, it's not something that anybody's addressed either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has Yose Aanessa turned heads since arriving, or am I expecting too much for a true freshman? That's another one I think we'll probably need to do a little more diving in on. But I know that coming into, obviously landing Yose, the expectation was that he was going to compete for snaps in some way. If you get a red shirt from him, I don't know if it'll matter because he kind of looks like a guy that's going to be a pro. And, once he gets on the field for 3 years or whatever.
There's a reason he's correctly a 5-star at 24/7, unlike other players. Don't ask me.
The other thing I would add though too is there's so much good depth at edge rushers right now.
But he's more of an interior guy.
Yeah, but then again, you brought in Jonah Pace. You brought in Bryce Hawthorne. You have Aaron Graves. I think Yose is going to be able to compete, but to have the expectations alone based on the last name, I think we need to temper him down. Now, is he going to be as good as his brother? I mean, AJ's long said that Yose is the best athlete in the family, and he's going to be better than him. But at the same time, you got to recognize, I think when you look at the defensive line right now, especially where he'd be playing at, the defensive line is in a much better place than it was when AJ Epinesa was in an Iowa uniform. Yeah, you had Anthony, you had Nelson, you had the Nelsons, you had you had Chauncey Golston for a little bit, you had Parker Hesse, but at the same time, now Iowa's depth just all around, I think you're going deeper, especially when you throw in the 6th-year guys coming back for one more.
That 4th or 5th spot. Go ahead, Elliot.
I was going to say, if Ethan Hurkett didn't come back, we'd be having a different conversation.
I agree.
And if they didn't land Jonah Pace, we'd be talking about him as a 3-tech.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I think with Yose, it's maybe that 4th or 5th defensive tackle spot. I think they kind of want Jeremiah Pittman to maybe slot into there more, just because he's got the experience. But, maybe Yose gets up to that 5th spot. Who knows with injuries and whatnot.
I was just going to say, it's a long season. Somebody's going to get hurt. So he'll have an opportunity one way or another. It might just be throw him in and go block a punt. I don't know that he has that type of ability right now, but he would against UMass, he would against Albany.
Mm-hmm.
So
for sure. Of the 3 stud in-state linebackers from the 2024 class, which is your best to step on the field first? Also, do you foresee any pros from this group? Elliot, I'll let you go in depth on this one. Because you're kind of the one that's, was first brought to the forefront. But for me, in terms of pros, I think all 3 could have potential to be UDFAs maybe. Maybe we see a draft pick, day 2, day 3 guy, maybe probably day 3. Day 3 more than likely, but I see UDFAs for sure. Elliot, you can go in depth on it a little more.
Preston Reese is the first one that's going to get on the field. Heard a lot about his explosiveness, the fact that he's a guy that you can put on the field and he might not know what he's doing, but he'll still make a play. I was telling Sean that I think he's probably going to compete with Jackson Rexroth for that Leo spot. Might be one of those guys like a Jay Higgins who starts at the Leo and then moves over to a Will or maybe a Mike, but I think Cam is the Mike. Cam or Carson Cooney will be the Mikes of the future, but yeah, Preston Reese is the one that's first. I think Derek Weisskopf still has to cook a little bit, but the athleticism is there. Like you said, Sean, I'm right there with you. I think they can all be draft picks or end up on UDFAs. Preston Reese, the other thing, broke the linebacker record for squat as a freshman. Not the freshman record, the linebacker record for squat. Dude is a freak genetically, and he's one of those guys that might not – he doesn't move super fluidly. Sean, this, seeing him play football, it's but he's also like ridiculously productive. So yeah, he's a guy that I think they all play on special teams this year, at least one way or another.
For sure.
I love Cam Buffington. Just from an athletic standpoint, he's Mr. Do Everything. I think he's an absolute stud. Will you see the field first? I don't know, but I think he's going to really turn some heads here soon.
Okay. How long will the field goal be to beat Nebraska 17-14 this year? Iowa's going to win by 10.
Yeah.
You did the article about redshirt freshmen who may see the field. Who are the true freshman candidates who will play more than 4 games? I mean, we talked about Yose. He's a candidate for it. Nathan McNeil, maybe, but I think they'll probably redshirt him. A couple of years ago, I would have told you Terrence Smith, but it seems like they're pretty good at those positions right now, or at wide receiver right now.
Maybe one of the tight ends, just by virtue of being forced out there. Like if you had to pick one, Sean, who would it be of those 3? Mason Woods, Thomas Meyer, and Eli Johnson.
Thomas Meyer, probably.
Okay.
But I mean, Mason Woods is a really good H-back, but I think he could be a really good H-back guy. But, if Hayden Large were to go down, but they would probably move one of the other tight ends there first.
I would probably say Eli is most physically ready. Thomas Meyer is probably the best athlete, and Mason Woods has the most versatility. So lots of weight. Like you could play Woods could end up playing wide receiver. Like he'd be a big wide receiver, but he could play wide receiver.
He would be. Trying to think who else. No one really in the secondary comes to mind either.
I love Olante Dean. Like I'll just say it.
He's a special teams guy. I think he could be a special teams guy. He was one guy that I wrote down back in the spring around signing that could potentially make an impact, but obviously they brought in Ty Hudkins, so that's more depth there. He's potentially a guy to watch because they always seem to kind of have maybe a defensive back that slips through the cracks a little bit, like Jalen Watts. I know, Elliot, that's your guy, so he didn't slip through the cracks for you, but for everyone else. So those are the guys. We kind of answered this one about the running back room splitting carries.
Yeah.
Leading wide receiver, we already talked about that. What's our record at home?
Let me pull it up quick. Here, I'll read the home schedule. You guys just say win or loss early on, then just keep track, okay? Albany, win. UMass,
win.
Indiana, Penn State. Sorry, go ahead. Indiana,
win.
It all depends on quarterback. Is Fernando Mendoza good enough to take it to the Big Ten? And that early, I'll say win, just because like what happened last time Indiana came to Iowa City. Like it's just different.
And so was Michael. Was that Michael Penix? I believe
that was Michael Penix.
Yep.
Now this team,
is
much more talented.
Yeah,
but I thought his career died there. Seriously, I thought he was done. Yeah. So kudos to him. Penn State.
Loss, just to be safe.
Minnesota.
Win.
Oregon.
These hands. Loss.
Yeah.
Michigan State. Excuse me. Michigan State.
Say win, but that's still 5-2.
I got 5-2.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, in those, like the games that we were obviously uneasy about, Indiana.
Reminder: Iowa does get an additional day of rest too because they play on that Friday night before at Rutgers.
Yeah, that's another thing. I forgot Rutgers was a Friday night game.
There you go.
If you had to pick which, since we're going to wrap it up after these questions, I know there are a few more that we'll probably answer on the site in a different mailbag or something like that. So for those that we didn't get to your questions, just know that we'll answer them at another date. This is one that's a good one. Of those 2 games against Oregon or Penn State, which one do you think, if you had to put money down for that game, which one would you say they win? Which game do you think would you say Iowa wins?
Dave, you're the guy who bets on sports.
Not Iowa though. Not Iowa.
Not Iowa. Since money is involved, I will defer to you first.
I'm going to say Penn State.
Yeah, I would say.
I think two reasons for the Oregon thing. Like, obviously, a lot of people will point to Iowa because Oregon going across 2 time zones, and we know what the time zone did for Big Ten teams this last year. And this is with all due respect to Phil Parker's defense, and because Iowa lacks a true cornerback 1 right now, I think Oregon's passing offense could really do some damage.
But the thing is, we don't
Against
know
Iowa's
about their
defense.
quarterback. Like, that's a big, like, if it was Dylan Gabriel, I'd be like totally on board. But like Dante Moore is like, yes, he has some experience from UCLA, but I don't.
It's the
I don't
same
know.
logic, Sean, to me, as whoever plays quarterback for Ohio State is going to be really damn good and put up stupid numbers. Oregon's in that same tier for me.
Yeah.
Like, that's why nobody's questioning Ohio State's quarterback play really going into the year.
and
Nobody's seeing Julian saying.
Yeah.
But he also has Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, that's another very good point. Well, and to be fair, Oregon did lose Evan Stewart for the year too.
Yeah, but their offensive line is like all like first team Big Ten guys potentially.
I also don't trust James Franklin, so.
And Iowa's beat Penn State. That's the thing, though,
Also
too.
part
Like
of
in the
it as
past,
well.
like Iowa has beat Penn State, but that most recent. All right, but that's a different. Go ahead, Elliot.
We started talking about the best player Iowa plays this year, and when you brought up Drew Aller, we all went, could this be one of those games where Drew Aller makes scouts, not us, scouts, NFL teams go, does he throw a pick? Does he throw 2 picks? Does he throw 3 picks? Like, I mean, what are the possibilities here? Could this be a game where Max Llewellyn, gets in his head more or less just by living in the backfield? Now, it's not going to be like Penn State's going to have a great offensive line too. Like, that's just what they do. But I would say just because of the history, I would lean Penn State too, and just because of how freaking good Oregon is, I would lean towards Penn State.
I think Oregon has a little more question marks defensively, although they do bring talent back on the defensive line. I think their linebackers are a little like iffy. I know this, like the secondary, they feel better about it because they brought in that guy from Purdue.
Yeah.
But I still think they're a little iffy, kind of on that back 7. But yeah,
can Iowa attack that?
Yeah, that's a good point. But also I look at Penn State and I'm like, there's really no questions defensively for them. There's really not many questions offensively for them, but obviously your quarterback has a big set. I mean, I could go back and forth, but I think Penn State, because they've done it before, but also like Penn State is just, they have the 2 running backs too who could potentially have Saquon Barkley type performances in Kinnick and like back in 2017.
Oof, Sean.
Iowa going to be able to run the ball? Because they're not going to win these games passing the ball. They're just not. Like, Iowa's receivers, though better, and though we consider them, I guess, quote unquote, deep this year, they're not going to be able to outspeed the DBs at Oregon or at Penn State, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So can they run the ball? And that's where it all comes back to left tackle. Are they going to be able to? Are they going to be able to pave the way? Like, is that going to be a weak spot?
I don't know why. I think we could talk about this in a later podcast. This team doesn't really have the bust factor to me that I think some of these other teams had in the last couple of years, where in terms of, we're going to lose to Tennessee 35-0 or however many it was. Like, I think they have the ability to stay in games a lot more. And I think that's going to make them more dangerous than, some of the other times where they just really struggled against ranked opponents. But also it's like this, that's why this Indiana game is so important, because what have they done against ranked opponent, like their last couple ranked opponents? Like, they need a game, Iowa State or Indiana, they need a game to prove that they can, compete with these level teams.
not get beat by 20 plus points. I don't know what it is now.
I mean, they haven't
average,
even been able to compete with teams that are ranked or they actually have a big pulse. Like it's to the point where look, Iowa's taking care of who they take care of, but the second they go up against somebody with a number on them, they struggle. And it's not even just struggling; they don't compete, and that's been a big problem I think last few years. And again, I think you're right. The bus factor is interesting to me. Again, we'll talk about this later. I'll wrap up with this thought. The bus factor is interesting because if they go 7-5 or 8-4, they met expectations by all accounts. It's not like the last few years where you're looking at, you know what, could they make a run in the playoffs? Oh, could they win 10 games? This is the year where they would meet expectations with 8 wins.
Is there less pressure on Kirk Ferentz because of Ben McCollum?
Column coming soon to HawkeyeInsider.com.
Let's take that out. That out.
We're ripping that. Column soon to HawkeyeInsider.com.
Oh, God.
Well, for David,
I should have waited that till after the podcast.
And Sean Bogg for the Swarmcast. Stay tuned to HawkeyeInsider.com. 50% off an annual subscription. Rate the podcast 5 stars, and we'll talk to you soon.